We sometimes wonder if others would consider something about our lives weird, or if how we perceive or process things is observed as divergent from how others would. Now consider the life of Ezekiel. He was a man who laid on his side for over a year, cooked food over burning dung, shaved his head with a sword, and saw many great visions in the Bible. But Ezekiel wasn't crazy. No, he was a prophet chosen by God during one of Israel's darkest times. Every act, every vision, and every word in his life had a powerful message. This is the unique life of the prophet Ezekiel. The story begins around 597 BC. The powerful Babylonian Empire had invaded Jerusalem. Many Israelites, including priests and leaders, were taken into exile and forced to live by the Kibar River in Babylon. Among them was a young priest named Ezekiel. One day when Ezekiel was 30 years old, right around the time he should have been serving in the temple back in Jerusalem, something incredible happened. Ezekiel was standing by the river when suddenly the skies opened. He saw something no one had ever seen before, a storm cloud glowing with fire, and inside it, 4 living creatures. They had human bodies, but each had 4 faces: a lion, an ox, an eagle, and a man. They had wings and they moved like lightning. Beside them were wheels within wheels, spinning in every direction. And above all this was a throne, and on it was a radiant figure that looked like a man, God's glory. Ezekiel fell face down in reverence. This encounter signified his calling. God told him, "I'm sending you to speak to the people of Israel. Whether they listen or not, they will know a prophet has been among them." God gave Ezekiel a challenging job. He was to be a watchman, a spiritual lookout. If he didn't warn people when they were doing wrong, he'd be held responsible. Ezekiel was faithful, but the people of Israel were stubborn. So God gave him a new strategy: act it out publicly. That's right, Ezekiel would serve as a visual prophecy, become a living message. God told Ezekiel to build a model of Jerusalem out of clay bricks and pretend to besiege it. He was to lie on his left side for 390 days to represent the years of Israel's sins, and then on his right side for 40 more days to symbolize Judah's sins. He was also instructed to eat a tiny portion of bread and water each day to illustrate the famine and hardship the people would face. And yes, cook the food over burning dung, because the people would eat defiled food in exile. Then God told Ezekiel to shave his head and beard with a sword to symbolize judgment against Jerusalem. He had to burn part of the hair, scatter part to the wind, and strike the third part with the blade, symbolizing God's punishment by blade, sword, and scattering. To outsiders, Ezekiel probably looked insane, but he wasn't putting on a show. He was warning his people through acts they couldn't ignore. Ezekiel didn't just preach about pain, he lived it. One day, God told him his beloved wife, the delight of his eyes, would die, but he was not to mourn openly. He was not to weep and not to shed any tears. It wasn't cruel, it was symbolic. God was showing the people what it would feel like to lose Jerusalem, the city they loved, and be too stunned to grieve. Ezekiel obeyed, even though his heart was breaking. Years passed and Jerusalem was destroyed, just as God said. The people were crushed. They thought God had abandoned them. Then came one of the most powerful visions in the Bible. God took Ezekiel to a valley full of dry bones. "Can these bones live?" God asked. Ezekiel said, "Only you know, Lord." Then God said, "Prophesy to the bones." Ezekiel obeyed, and suddenly bones rattled, came together, were covered with flesh, and came to life. God was saying, "I will bring my people back to life. I will restore them. I have not forgotten you." After years of warnings and loss, Ezekiel's message turned to hope. God showed him a future where the people would return to their land. They would have new hearts, cleansed from sin. A new temple would rise. God's presence would return. The final words of Ezekiel's book are simple but powerful. The Lord is there. Despite everything, exile, loss, and grief, God had not abandoned his people. So what does Ezekiel's bizarre life teach us today? God speaks in unexpected ways, even through strange actions and bold visions. Obedience matters. Ezekiel didn't always understand, but he obeyed. There's hope after destruction. Dry bones can live again. God is always present, even when we don't feel it. Ezekiel reminds us that even in our lowest moments, God is working behind the scenes. He's not done with us. He brings life out of death and hope out of despair. Remember, even dry bones can rise again.